The rotational torque aspect, I understand. Securing the lumbar spine, that's one of the biggest things that I've learned from you, brother. It's understanding that you want to secure the weakest link in the chain, which is your lumbar spine. And if your T-spine is rotating, it's fine. Yet, how do we, what is your opinion on these ballistic loading exercises? Circle
Yeah,
cleans, side
they're just plain.
swings.
Most of them are plain dangerous. I think if you do it with a body weight for mobility and flexibility, it's fine. Especially Indian clubs are nice because it's lightweight.
Yeah.
But the minute you start loading it really heavy, you have to be really, really mindful. You have to be almost an advanced athlete to be able to control your body like that, to
Yeah.
be safe.
Yeah.
They're not suitable for beginners at all. They are advanced, in my opinion, and not suitable for most. And then, even athletes like, have you had any injuries? It's really, I would say, person specific, and I would have to kind of look at their training and seeing, does this make sense? Uh, Look, I've experienced back pain. I would say most people experience back pain, and the minute you do, you really have to be careful about your back, because the minute you get injured in your back, it's over. You can't train, you can't do anything. So, are those movements too risky? Are they worth the risk? It's up to you. You make the call. To me, it's not. So, you look at Stu's work. He'll talk about you don't want to combine uh, flexion and rotation into one motion because it replicates disc herniation. You could do one or the other. At the same time, you don't want to do it loaded, especially not in athletics. But in well, you know what? In some athletics, you don't have a choice, such as throwing, pitching, and stuff like that. But you look at the body mechanics; they use the whole body. So let's say a pitcher, a thrower, or someone that does twists, like uh, hockey players. Any athlete that is forced to twist their body, they do it enough in their sport. They don't need to load that with weight. They have to create stability in their spine. So they have to counter all that rotation that they do in their sport with something to strengthen the opposite, the opposite that it's preventing, that is anti-rotation, anti-bending, anti-extension to stabilize the spine. So they have to strengthen all their torso muscles, their whole body, so their spine stays as safe as possible during their sport. Does that make sense?
100%.
Because they do it enough in their sport. So it's why repeat? Why kind of hit the horse in the head too often? Right? It doesn't make any sense.
And
It's like you're trying to overdo it, and that's where injury occurs. And enough players get injured through playing their sports anyway. And what happens is that they get injured usually towards the end of the game, unless they got into a fight or there's something else happens or whatever. But it's when they're fatigued the most that they get hurt. And Stuart McGill has done the tests with fighters, or he's done a lot of tests with fighters and other athletes. But he talked to me because I took a few of his seminars in person, and I know Stuart.
Awesome.
And he told me that when he checks an athlete for injury, the mechanism for injury will usually replicate itself during fatigue. So you won't see it right away when they're fresh, because he'll analyze their movement and he'll do a whole assessment with them to check what's happening. You see, it only happens when they get tired. They start compensating. So it's normal that, because your muscles are just too fatigued to continue. So that's when athletes tend to get injured, is towards the end. So you can train yourself to have more endurance, try to be as less fatigued as possible, or to be as fresh as possible during your sport. But it's inevitable up to a certain point when you're at such high level. You're playing, it's like interval. You're going to get fatigued. You have to buffer the acid.
And on the other hand, brother, you know what I think is another aspect that we have to consider when we talk about athletes is, yes, they maybe have a higher risk to benefit ratio with their sport alone, yet they get compensated, man. So
all the time.
so
They're so asymmetrical because they favor one side always.
and I mean
Most
I mean
athletes.
I mean even the monetary compensation that
Okay.
plays a role. Yeah, because listen, this is what I'm always telling myself is, okay, why engage in a sport where high level of athleticism, there is always a higher level of risk because you want to be the best, you push your body to a limit. I get it. I get it. So you're prone to injury, unfortunately, no matter how safe you engage or try to engage. So prone to injury, yet the benefits is, if I am a professional soccer player in Europe and I hurt my knee, at least I got money in the bank. I mean, yes, we know money cannot compensate for health. Yet, there is the benefit where I'm saying, okay, I'm engaging and putting my body to this stress and these compressive forces that are not necessary for a normal human being, because I get compensated in a way normal people do not.
Of course.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Money is always a factor.
Always, yeah.
Everyone has
to a
their
certain
price.
degree. Yeah.
Everyone has their price.
And you know, when I read the book, one thing that already strikes me is the problem that exacerbates itself when you have postural deficiencies. What Dr. Stuart McGill is talking about. So, and I like how we already talked about it as well. I like how this ties into what Gray Cook is saying from Functional Movement Systems, and Pavel was replicating what Gray Cook was saying in that BJJ video, where it's all about moving well before moving often and under load. This is such a crucial statement, man.
Yes, that's their motto. It's move well, move often.
And
so before being strong first, you want to be able to move well, and then you could be strong.
100%.
That's kind of it's kind of like the you want to have that mobility approach, where we're gonna look at a client and assess their movement rather than just start training them. And we have a system, we use FMS also, and we look at how our students move, or how people, when they come in, we check them out.
You already can screen them, right?
We have to screen them
with the coach's eye. You're already, and we talked about it. We talked about this the last time. How you're already able to screen somebody, not in a negative way, but just understanding how they move, how they sit down, how they engage with their bodies. You see so much in the beginning, where the first thing is just understanding how to move your body without it even being loaded. Right.
Correct.
And I'm getting this, man. And you know what's we got a lot of these comments where like, or strong first, or kettlebells, or blah blah blah. It's like a cult. And you know where I'm getting this vibe from is because we agree on so many things because they make sense.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And if I agree with some notion, then maybe I have to disagree with another. Yeah. and when you agree with certain philosophies, you're bound to disagree with other stuff. And that's where people get the feeling that you're a cult, or.
And there's others that take things to extremes. Like, we're not all extremists.
Yes.
People that strong first, we're not extreme either. I mean, we like to be strong, but we want to help you move better also. And we know what we do, it works really well. And we teach some of the top courses, or we offer the best instruction and knowledge out there in the industry. Also, the reason why I say this is because I took all of them. I took a lot of the courses out there, I've read all of the books, and I just follow who I know is the best and inspires me most. And we're also who I jive with. It's also my personality.
Of course.
So it's also the style, and you kind of relate, or other styles attract you more. That's also fine. So it's, whatever floats your boat, So Dan and Pavel, they've been working together. Dan is an awesome coach. He's just also he's legendary. He's also a genius in his own way. You know, we all follow the same people. So you have a group of people that you follow. They kind of the geniuses kind of hang out together. Stuart McGill.
Yeah, look at me and you, brother.
Dan
Look at me and
John.
you. Look at me
Exactly.
and you.
So you know that's who those are the people that I follow.
Mm.
You know, and it's kind of a sad thing because in the industry right now there's so many influencers and other people like follow those people, but they're not really teachers necessarily. They're just kind of like showing what they can do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and a lot of the times it's advanced. It's like they're kind of like in their own lane. They're driving in their own lane. They can do things that no one else could do. It's super inspirational, looks cool, but it's not for most. That's the thing, because most people, they just need to move better. They just need to move better.
You're saying the same thing. I had a podcast in the morning with Kat's Kettlebell Dojo.
Oh, you talked to Kat?
Yeah, today.
Cool.
We had a conversation of 1 hour and 40 minutes. It was so inspiring. It was so awesome.
She's from New Zealand, or?
Yeah, New Zealand. And she, you know what's so beautiful, man? I talked to Dennis, I talked to you, I talked to Dan, I talked to Brittany, I talked to her. And what I told Kat today is, what I find interesting about talking to you guys is experts kind of agree in the same lane. So it's the top of the pyramid, right? People be like, we come to the same conclusions because we understand how the kettlebell works. And then I said, you know, because you mentioned this, for example, a clean and press or a Turkish get-up done slowly will not impress anybody on social media, but it will impress your body. It will leave a huge impression on your body. And Kat said, you know, maybe the exercise doesn't look sexy, but it makes you sexy. And I was like, 100%, that's what it is, man. And we see this. It's rampant on social, and that's why I believe it's important that experts stand up and in a respectful way disagree. And I love I love the word peer review, and I love the word discernment. Teaching people truth from error.
How to be able to discern right from wrong or quality.
And how are you supposed to discern anything if nobody speaks up?
You can't.
You can't. You look at it, you're like, okay, that's the way it's supposed to be. And in a recent video, I came to this conclusion. I was like, there's 2 schools of thought that I believe one should follow when it comes to kettlebells. Either you go down the hardstyle route, and I just recently read in the Strong First Forum that Pavel was gaining the Master of Sport in kettlebell sport in the military, which I think is awesome. So it's either hardstyle, kettlebells for general fitness and getting stronger with kettlebells in general, or kettlebell sport, or what I like to term, what Brittany and I call ourselves now, is the hybrids. I love what you guys do, and I love what the sports guys do, and I combine it. And you know what Kat said? She said, when she was doing competitions, she was smoking the competitions because of her hardstyle training.
Totally.
Because when you have to rack heavy kettlebells in the hardstyle fashion, without resting the elbow on your hip, it's going to be
you have a stronger core.
It's a breeze when you have to engage in the sport. So I see how they both complement each other, which I really enjoy. And these are the 2 schools of thought that one must follow, I believe, if you want to take everything up that the kettlebell has to offer. And one thing that I found digging through all these reactions is one thing. People who don't follow neither hardstyle, neither sport, they do their own kind of thing with kettlebells. You know what they do? I love it. They mask their so-called unfortunate incompetence in most of the time with light weights. Isn't that the truth, brother, man?
You know what, man? uh, the thing, you can do a bunch of stuff with light weights, and you mentioned this yourself. And once you go heavy, it exposes everything. You know, you can't do it. You can't do it.
No,
No way.
no way.
Because you can lift a really light weight the wrong way so many times before you get hurt. You know, but technique is where you get results. Technique is where you get true results, and I see this a little bit. It's unfortunate because not everyone sees the value in learning technique first. Because I get people coming in to ask me, what kettlebell should I buy? Or what's the best kettlebell size for me? Well, it depends what you're doing with it. And some guys come in, they want to buy 12 kilo for swings. I'm like, that's not correct. You're not really doing anything with that. So men should have like maybe designated minimum weight they should use for certain exercises, and then should learn technique. Because otherwise, you're kind of wasting your time. You could just kind of floating around. You're floating around. You're not really getting it much into or deep into something really, or getting 100%. Much out of something, or the tool anyway. So there's so much value into getting instruction from a coach, from one of us, from you or me, before they get to train.
Yeah.
I mean, some people learn on their own. That's okay, and until they reach a certain point, then they'll reach out to us, and then they'll be like, "Oh, I need help with this technique, this," and then we just kind of polish off the details, right?
You know what Cat called this? Man, I've written down. You know what's the beautiful stuff about these podcasts? When I have to edit it, I hear it again, and then it sticks. She said, "A willing student always finds his teacher." Man, Cat's powerful, man.
Totally.
And
they'll go looking, they'll go searching.
Yeah, and you mentioned about the 12 kilo. If I may just contribute to that idea, brother, I believe
some men do 12 kilo, but it's just.
And brother, you're definitely right. That's what I'm seeing, and that's why I'm seeing somehow this hybrid philosophy. When you engage in I call it now the hybrid hand-to-hand swing. You're only engaging in the hinge. You're doing hand-to-hand movements, hand-to-hand swing. You're going for time. A 12 kilo for a man might work very well in the hybrid idea. Yet, 100% I'm on your side. If we talk about the hardstyle swing, hey, bruh, I'm picking up the 20 with both hands. It feels like an 8 kilo now. I've generated so much power now, and I understand. And I love it, man. I love the hardstyle
awesome.
swing. And I recently swung the 48, and now I'm getting the 40 kilo because I want to make this my build a simple and sinister idea around it. And man,
outstanding,
brother. Let me tell you, man. You have opened my eyes to really the hardstyle philosophy in a way where I understand it's not either or. It's together. The sport guys, the hardstyle guys. It's together. I see the power of both.
Yeah. Can I ask you, Gregory, have you ever thought about competing in sport?
I've been asked this a couple of times, but nah.
No?
The reason why is I don't have the athlete's mindset, man. I'd rather dedicate my time to becoming better as a teacher and coach and building the business than prepping for a championship.
That's your what you're more passionate about is teaching.
That's where I'm at, man.
Yeah, totally. Same with me.
That's why, and another thing, I talked to Angie about this. And maybe the sport guys, they have to hear it, I believe, because Brittany French Ravendijk, Fitbrit, she mentioned this. She kind of felt burned out after working with the heavyweights in the sport. And what I always tend to believe, I see it in the comment section, and when you look at history, and when you read some books, and you read some articles, you see it. High-level athleticism, we talked about it, probably leads to injury. Yes. So if I start engaging in heavy kettlebell training or the sport with the weights that I'm supposed to use, I believe it's not for my spine. I believe I'll probably hurt myself. That's what my body's telling me.
You know what? I think heavy training has a place in everyone's programs, but it has to be like sprinkled in. You could say, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, I kind of have to measure the doses
Yeah.
because you can't just go heavy all the time and just stick to heavy. Because if you've looked at all the successful athletes that lift weights or even in sports, they have light, medium, and heavy. So you need, I'd say, uh, over 50%, even up to 80% of your workload should be between light and medium. And the rest, 20%, should be heavy-ish. You know, I mean, heavy is relative.
Yeah, it's relative.
So
Yeah.
it would
Yeah.
have to do tests and find out what your heavy weights are. But, you know, in terms of sport, doesn't have to be a heavy one rep max. You know, it's not what we're going for. But just comfortable weights that are challenging. Since I believe it's 232s, right? Or you can try 228s. You know, it's really up to you.
I believe.
Program has a mix of all these weights. Even Simple and Sinister has usually you working on two weights. So it's the weight you own and the progression weight, the next bell up. You're mixing two weights with this SNS actually, because once you own the one weight, you should be starting to go heavier with your next bell up. That's the way the program works. So any good program has a mix of both. There's a lot of ways to program, right? You could have progressive overload. You can use load variability, which is also super effective, and mixing up different intensity zones in your program. You know, there's a lot of ways to program. We could have a whole podcast on programming.
Yeah, 100%.
So,
and you talked about it briefly the last time, and I want you to elaborate on it. It's what Pavel says, which I like. He says, make sure the stop signs or you stop lifting if the rate of exertion goes above 8. Save your 9s and 10s for the sport, or as I like to call it now, save it for fight night, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like a test.
Your expression, right? Or even sometimes in the workout where I feel like now I feel like today I want to know what's up, right? Because I don't compete. So for me, the fight night mode is some of my workouts. And you mentioned not always going heavy. I listened to the full podcast of Squat University with Ed Cohn and Dr. Stuart McGill. And Ed Cohn, one of the greatest powerlifters ever, said, too many folks lift too heavy for too long, and that's what kills them.
Correct. The problem occurs when you're kind of trying to add those small weights. When you're going heavy and you're heavy for too long, and then you try adding a little bit of weights at a time and just keep going for too long. It's not a great approach. Pavel likes to take bigger jumps with weights because it kind of shocks your body. And if you're at 90% and you just kind of add, you stay with that 90% too long, and you try to add like 2.5 pounds or 5 pounds and just keep going, it just, you're kind of burning yourself out there.
The system breaks, yeah.
System breaks. And you look at the way powerlifters kind of program or cycle their loads. It's usually in a 12-week period or 14, 16-week, sometimes 10-week cycle. And they kind of calculate, they backtrack. They'll say, this is what should be my 1 rep max, and then they'll backtrack weights. And they'll take different, depending on, first of all, depending on their strength and depending on whether their muscle has more fast twitch fibers or slow twitch fibers.
Genetic potential, right? Yeah.
So let's say if you test your 1 rep max, and it's a certain number, it's like whatever, 300 pounds, and you calculate your 80%, and you do a test with your 80%, and you do as many reps as possible with your 80%. Now, certain people, if you're fast twitch like me, I may just get 5 reps. Now, a woman that is more, maybe Angie, that's more slow twitch, possibly in that exercise, whether it's upper body or lower body, each is different, and it's specific to the person. It could be upper body, lower body, exercise specific. You may get 10 reps. I may get 5 reps. So that means you have to program it a little bit differently in that case and take different type of jumps between each weight selection. Now you could be more precise with a barbell, of course, because you could calculate up to the pound how much you want. But in kettlebells, you can't as much. You got to take bigger jumps. And in body weight is a little bit different. You have to play with your leverage, right? So there's different ways to program depending on what tool you use. Now with kettlebells, you have to stay with a bell for a while, as you know, until you're able to conquer that weight and then move up in weights. Usually we use a couple of sizes, you know. And Pavel likes to use what's called the delta 20 principle, which is at least a minimum of 20% in intensity jump. He also uses for volume. So let's say the volume could be within a workout, could be within a weekly total, or a monthly total. So we have a way to calculate very precisely what's your monthly total of lifts, what's your weekly total of lifts, or what's your daily total of number of lifts for that exercise. Pavel came up with Plan Strong, which is a very advanced programming for lifters, for strength. You can also use it for ballistics, actually, which is interesting. The way to wave the weights or wave the load. So it's super interesting way to program it. I could send you an article that he wrote. It's called From Simple to Sinister. It's an article that he wrote after he wrote the book. It's called From Simple to Sinister. How to use the weightlifting methodology to wave your weights or wave your load from week to week or from day to day. And let's say if you use the regular simple and sinister template, which is 100 total of swings. Then you calculate, let's say you do that five days a week, then your total would be 500 a week. If you do it every month, it would be 2,000. 2,000 monthly reps of swings. That's kind of average, right? So on, he uses a percentage of that monthly total, which will fluctuate drastically. So it's the art of load variability, which is actually very efficient and very powerful method of planning your training for the month. You could use it with power lifts. You can use it with strength exercise. You could even use it with body weight calisthenics and kettlebell ballistics as well. It's a very interesting method of planning your training. So if you divide the month into 4 parts, which is 4 weeks, you'll have 25% every week. But there's another way. Uses, instead of 25 4 times, there's a 15, 22, 28, 35. That's the percentage. So you take 15%, 22, 28, and 35%. Now try doing that. Divide that into 2,000 reps, and then you have your weekly volume. But you just have to calculate the percentages.
So if I'm trying to follow, brother. But
and it becomes a little more interesting, like because I love programming. You calculate like your and this is advanced, and I only do it for friends or myself. To
highly advanced stuff.
Do like advanced programming for certain people.
And just to reiterate it quickly, the percentages that you mentioned, is that the weights or the repetitions?
No, it's the volume. It's the total monthly volume in terms of.
You mentioned those 2,000. You mentioned those. Let's stick with those because I want to understand it. Let's just say an easy number. It's 1,000 swings per month. That's the total volume, and let's pick the 32.
Yeah. So if you would divide that into 4, it would be 4 weeks. Then you'll have your every week how much you do in a week, right?
That would be 250.
Equally, it would be 25% 4 times, right? So if you change that, you can change those numbers. Instead of having it equal, you make it 15, 22.
Ciao, Matt. Cheers, ciao. Yeah, keep going.
You make it 15, 22, 28, and 35, rather than 25 every week.
So now I got it. So you play with the volume of
Yes.
those swings. So it's like, I'm just
Exactly.
paraphrasing. One week it's 150, the next
Correct.
week it's 200, and then 300.
Correct.
Now I'm getting
Yeah.
it.
So
Getting
let's
it.
say you take that 300 for that 1 week, and then you could divide that into your week in any way you want. And there's ways of doing that also. You know, you could make it equal across the board. But Pablo says that, hey Angie, Pablo says that you get stronger, or you're able to tolerate more volume towards the end of the week, like on a Friday. At the beginning, like on a Monday, should be low volume. The next day, a little more volume, and then you kind of build up like that. It kind of
Yeah.
does a little bit of like that, you know. So
You
a
know
lot of
what
ways to program, but that's one way of doing it.
But you mentioned something that is highly interesting, and that is, this is highly advanced programming,
Yes.
right? Because it involves a lot of calculations, it involves a lot of working with the volume, working with the weights, and then you have to have your client or your athlete or whatever stick to the program, see how it works, and then get the crucial feedback, and then maybe adjust. So that's highly advanced stuff.
Yes.
And you know, one of the critiques that I've issued towards Mark Wildman was the idea of his nerd math, which to me seemed very complicated. And so I realize now, as I'm seeing it through the beginner's lens, is as soon as you start calculating and going intensively with the numbers and really, you know, working with different workloads, in your opinion, that's for advanced folks, and in my opinion as well. So
I would say, like, if you were to do it yourself, that's advanced. If you want to calculate it yourself, but you can have someone program for you that would be willing to do that program. But here's the problem. The other problem, Gregory, is this, is I'm sure Dan would agree, and maybe you've heard him say it before, is that you're going to have this really advanced program, you built it, but then they end up missing one workout, and then end up missing two workouts.
Oh, yeah.
And then they end up defaulting from the program. And then you try to realize, like, why did I end up spending so much time writing this program?
I know this.
Dedicated to doing it.
Yes, I know this.
So
I know this
first of all, if you're going to design a program, make sure that the person is going to do it, that they are very dedicated, and you're charging enough money to justify that. You know, I would not do it for free. I've made the mistake before, but you know, at the beginning, you're just learning how to design these programs. You do it a lot, so you know, you're not charging so much. But if the person has to be very committed to do something advanced like that, and has to give you feedback, you know, because otherwise I'd give them 5x5, which is
you're done.
Here you go. And that works.
Yeah. You know, and our method works so beautiful as well with the ideology that we are now following with the 4-time method, where it's like, listen, it's swing, it's press, it's squat, 2 minutes per exercise. When you have all 3 exercises done, you have 6 minutes of workload, you have 1 minute break, and you do those 3 rounds.
Yeah,
it's
these are
easy.
like series. What you're doing now is a series. So you could say it's like a 2 or 3 minute series. Pavel devised a really nice way to be able to work your strength and power without building any fatigue. So I'm sure probably you've heard of it. Not sure if you talked about it in the BJJ program, but it's called anti-glycolytic training. Anti-glycolytic, it means you're avoiding acid buildup altogether.
Yeah.
You're keeping your workout in an interval where the acid does not have a chance to accumulate. And you have enough recovery time in your interval that you're almost fully, not almost like fully, but you can have let's say 50% or more recovered, that you're able to keep that up. And that's the thing, is able to keep up the same quality of work for a long duration of time, or as long as you want. And there's a lot of ways to program it, but that's one of them. And it's really powerful. People will get great results from that.
Awesome. And you know, when you mention these types of programs, what I am now just realizing is, and you mentioned this before now, with the genetic potential, depending on the setup of your muscle fibers, I am now, I think my body's telling me that I have some kind of a, let's say, evened out, balanced mix. Because when I was following hypertrophy training intensively, bodybuilding type style, I was never huge. I was bigger than I am now because I followed those typical hypertrophy programs, but I was never huge. So, and now that I'm discovering working for time, and that's why I gravitated towards the kettlebell sport, and now I'm gravitating towards hardstyle and combining it. I think I have an even distribution of, or a somewhat even distribution. So that's why I love applying what you are saying when we work with the 2 minutes, and now what you say, what Pavel's saying, working this anti-glycolytic idea that you don't burn out yourself, which I 100% really recommend to almost everybody, which is so beautiful, a beautiful way to lift and train, especially for beginners, without killing yourself, but still, and that's what I like, is sweating, reaching a certain limit, but always keeping that in mind. It's like, listen, the timer's not up yet, but I'm stopping the exercise, relaxing, breathing, and wow, these powerful breathing methods that Pavel talked about, I dove into power breathing, I understand it, I apply it as well. Then the fractional breathing is awesome, the Darth Vader breathing is awesome. Man, it's awesome. It's so much good stuff, man. And I'm swallowing it all up, man. I'm taking a deep dive, and I really enjoy it, man. It's
apply it, see the benefits, and then you can share with others. It's like Pavel. He's not gonna go on anyone's podcast. He doesn't have the time. He doesn't want to. It's just beyond him. Mm-hmm. You know, he'll only choose very selectively what he wants to do, because he's very selective with his time, what he does.
You know, and with the status that he inhabits, it's granted to him. I think I wouldn't do it differently if I was in his place. It's like, hey, I
was lucky to have dinner with him the other night, and we talked, and you know, we're good friends. So
that's awesome, man.
I'm lucky.
100%. And you know, it's just taking in the stuff that he says, and you know, just being mindful of the fact that he and John Duquesne started this revolution in the West, where I'm like, you know, there's some things where I listen to almost everybody who in my eyes is a serious expert. And then sometimes I mix my own stuff into it, where because I'm listening to so many sources that sometimes I'm like, well, maybe I see it a little bit different. I know where this person is coming from, but maybe I have my own opinions about stuff.
You have to have a filter, brother. And
but we can never
knows what they're doing.
but you know we can never. And I think that's where this idea of cult comes from. The reason why we have to really, everybody who picks up kettlebells has to respect the man, is because he put them on the map in the West. If it wasn't for him, I don't know if you and me we're talking now. So this is something where I do not care whether you agree with him, whether you disagree with him, whether you like him or not. He put it on the map in the West. And he came up with a different methodology, and I don't care if it was already happening in Russia. I do not care about it. If it was his original idea, or if he just took the GPP, SPP ideology and mixed it sort of together with kettlebells, I do not care. He put it on the map. So he deserves the credit in any case. Yeah. And so if I may segue into this, because I'm highly interested in your opinion, did you hear what Steve Maxwell said?
Yeah, I listened to the podcast, and
what's your take, man?
I like it better than you got more views about your critique on his podcast than the podcast itself.
It's funny, right? It's funny. It's funny, man. It's funny.
I don't know, man. I think Steve is a super knowledgeable guy. What I see happening sometimes with experts, and they kind of drift away, and this happened to Dan also. What I saw, he kind of drifted away from what he used to do or who he used to be with, and he ended up with controversial statements, and this doesn't work anymore, or this should not be done anymore, and I change what I believe, or I guess people change, and people's beliefs change.
Yeah.
But look, so many people use kettlebells, and for him to go out and say that they don't work, I'm not gonna use them anymore, that doesn't make sense to me. To me, that just doesn't make sense. You're going to go out and say that if you don't want to use them anymore, that's your choice. But then you're going to go out and say that they don't work, they're dangerous.
Well, yeah, that's what he said, brother. He
if
didn't
you don't use them correctly, yeah, it's dangerous, like anything else.
Like anything else. But he didn't say they don't work, brother. He didn't say they don't work. He said yes, they work, but given the high injury rates of those guys he mentioned, and that's where he lost.
But those guys
me,
are elite athletes. His wife is an elite athlete. Pavel's an elite athlete. So is Dan. They're all elite athletes, bro. All the people he mentioned are elite athletes. So he's an elite athlete to a certain extent. He's been doing it for years. I don't know if he's competing or not, but I could tell you that Pavel, like he's done arm wrestling competitions. He's a martial artist that does competitions. All these people are athletes. So use the tool to be strong, to help us in our sport. But like we said at the beginning of the podcast, you're prone to injury. Well, maybe less so because you use the kettlebell, but it's
and
like,
then, the funny thing, brother, the funny thing is I didn't watch the whole thing. I was just the part where he talked about Pavel and stuff. And just, I don't have to watch the whole thing. If you say, I don't use kettlebells anymore because I don't see no reason to use them, that's a bold statement. I don't have to listen to anything else. If that comes from any one of those experts, and I'm like, okay, first of all, you are an expert, so I'm listening. But then it felt like he had an axe to grind. That's the impression. And I said this in a recent video. I do not know the man's heart. I'm not saying it is that way. I say I get the impression. Yeah. And then he contradicts himself in the end where he says it's not the tool, it's how you use it. Well, that
the kettlebell
destroys your earlier argument, right? Yeah, that's what kettlebells are. And I said this, and you probably agree with me. Yes, kettlebells are dangerous if you don't know how to engage with them. And if you do these funny looking exercises with a 24 kilo or a 20 kilo, and you said this earlier, the necessary feedback that the heavyweight is giving you, you have to feel it to understand, ooh, that's probably not a good idea.
Correct. And but by the way, if I can mention that Strong First has adapted and changed its system, it has been evolving since RKC. And Steve Maxwell was only part of it for a little while. I don't think he was there for super long. Like Brett Jones, if you're with the company for a while, you see the system kind of change and get better.
Yes.
So we adapt. We know that you should not be doing tons of repetition. We know that we should not be getting deeper and deeper into fatigue. The HIIT training that he was talking about is the high intensity training that was popularized by Arthur Jones, that you try to fatigue the muscle as much as possible. But we know that you slow down, you have a huge buildup of lactic acid, and you're more injury prone when you do that type of training. That's what happens.
Yeah. And then you have to understand how to engage. I don't think you can mix or lump all philosophies together for every tool. That's why I think CrossFit, while I like the idea, the circuit idea, I think the big problem is you are using 1 rep max exercises from weightlifting, snatch, clean and jerk, heavily loaded, 4 reps.
Yeah. Not necessarily 1 rep max, but it should be done 1 rep at a time. Just kind of like start and stop.
Just when you look at the weightlifting, I mean, this is where the stuff comes from. I just recently watched a video from Lu Xiaoyun, one of the Chinese weightlifters. I think he posted one of his friends who was clean and jerking 98 kilograms. Mm-hmm. And the dude is like 85 kilogram. So how crazy is that? Yes, you know what toll this takes on your body probably for most of the athletes if you go to these heavy weights. And now we take this heavy, massive exercise and put it into reps. you maybe can do it, but then the programming has to be very sophisticated. And I just
think
read
it's a
this.
lot to the technical competency
Yeah.
due to the nature of the lift itself.
100%.
You look at the elite weightlifters, they usually probably don't do more than 3 reps. I think Klokov maybe singles, doubles, and triples usually. But they just do lots of sets, lots and lots and lots of sets. Do one,
and then they rest.
Take a rest.
And they rest.
You do 2, maybe 2 in a row.
Yeah.
That's it. You rest.
Yeah.
And they do have variety in the lift. They do other like
GPP,
other types of cleans and stuff to help the lifts and
Yeah.
So you have to be mindful about programming. CrossFit has done their own thing, even with kettlebells, as you can see. They can use their kettlebells their own way. They do the American swing. And I think smart CrossFit coaches, they know how to use that exercise, but kind of in a smart way.
Yeah.
They intelligently. Maybe for a competition, or they know that hard style works probably better just for technique. But most people, they don't have that range of motion, and if you do a test on a power plate, you'll see which one develops more power. It's the hard style develops more power, and it's safer, which taken from martial arts context, it's fastest and most powerful with the ideal amount of load.
Ooh, and Steve mentioned this. He talked about explosive exercises, or doing exercises explosively. If you do them explosively, this does not transfer into the explosive power that an athlete or that a person can develop. And he didn't quote it. He didn't quote the science, but there's
he
one
said something
huge.
Like you don't have to. You
don't have to speed
like
yeah. And then I there's one huge review that I have in my mind, that I was always referencing, because it goes against the grain and says, yes, you don't have to do exercises fast to be fast. So that's what they're quantifying in this meta-analysis. Yeah, and check this out. And I asked Dan about this, and I was like, Dan, just from your experience in 40 years of lifting, do explosive exercises, for example, cleans, snatches, do they transfer to the field? And he says, I do think so, that they do. I see it in practice.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm having another problem with, and I am slowly now really.
Why is that a problem?
No, not with Dan John. Not with Dan John. I'm having a problem with this statement from Steve Maxwell, where he says it's blatantly false. Yeah, and I think you have to be very careful with these choice of words, right? You have to be careful.
I think what he means also, like, I don't want to just assume what he means. And I think, that you could look at it from different perspectives, because you can look at a power lifter, and a power lifter can do maybe the power lifts, and they're strong enough, they can start swinging kettlebells. Like, they can be fast with kettlebells. Yeah. Can they be as fast as a sprinter? Probably not. Can a marathon runner be just as fast as a sprinter? Probably not. So it's like, you can't compare apples and oranges. Yeah. You got your sport. You got your event. What are you trying to accomplish? Number one. Yeah. For the regular Joe and Jane, being fast is awesome. Should they do ballistics if they can? Yes. Why? Because it trains your fast twitch fibers in a way that you don't really, it's a low impact. Number one, you don't have to do sprints. You don't have to jump up and down. You don't have to do jumping. And you don't have to go as heavy with a load like a deadlift that is put so much pressure on your spine.
On the system, yeah.
On the system, like Stuart McGill says. But the thing with swings, it's also not for everyone. As Stu would mention, it does put shear load on the spine. So some people are intolerant to that shear load. Some people, it will fix their backs. So it's really how you apply it to with who.
That's what he said in the podcast, where he said, Pavel came with this idea of kime, this generating force in your anterior chain, because the acceleration when you're in the swing, the acceleration from your posterior chain generates shear force in your spine when you're on top. So that's the reason why you have to contract your anterior chain. The surface breaks to keep your spine from experiencing those shear forces. And he said that's the reason why Pavel came up with the keyme, with the tension, because this engineers out the shear force to a certain degree. And another thing that he mentioned was, you mentioned powerlifters, where it's like, listen, if somebody's spine is not able to experience a certain range of motion, this is not a bad sign. Because when you take a look at a powerlifter example, his spine was trained that way because it has to experience so much compressive force.
Yeah, it's gone through the...
It changes its structure and the tissues, man. And you know, this is so powerful stuff, man. It's
creating those micro fractures, which I think Steve Maxwell was talking about, but they're good. That's what happens when you train. You create micro fractures and they heal, you become stronger. I mean, if you overdo it, you're gonna get injured. You could create more severe cracks and stuff.
And that's where, you know, that's where everybody agrees on. It's like, wow, okay, so you have a beginner picking up a 48 kilogram and doing his first set of 10 swings with a 48, probably hurt himself or herself. Well, not probably, most definitely. So yes, do not do this. And Kat, you know, we talked about juggling and figure eights, and where the spine is moving in elaborate ways and rotating and flexing and rotational torque.
Yeah, is it? During figure eights? Are you twisting and rotating so much?
I think to a certain degree. When you use a heavier weight and you go down. So let's just imagine. I was thinking about it because now...
In my opinion, it should not be used for a heavier weight. It should be used with a weight that you can keep your spine in a neutral position. Because the goal of that, what I see, is just to make the core react. You're transferring the load to your limbs, so it makes your core respond to staying tight, staying neutral. That should be the point of that exercise, in my opinion.
And then just my question would be, why not just do the hardstyle swing or a swing with single hand, where your core has to work? So then this is where I'm coming from. It
can be used as a warm up, you know, core activation as they call it, or activation. To add variety also, because adding variety
is for fun.
Is fun. But keep the 3-letter word WIN.
I love it. And brother, this is where I'm coming from, man. And I'm really, for example, the Russian twist. That's why I'm digging into this book, because I want to take a look at these kettlebell exercises from that angle of a spine scientist who dedicated his life to the spine.
So Stuart McGill will say on that it's only for specific sports, like fighters, because they will be put in those positions during a fight. So it's some of these movements are, you could say, poisonous, but taking it into light doses can create more resiliency in the spine, in the body. But it's like a poison. Poison is like anything. You take too much, it's gonna, you know.
And you know what? That's great feedback from you, because then I will put it into category SPP2, what Pavel was talking about, the sport-specific performance or sport-specific preparation. Correct. Where it's like most people it's GPP and it's SPP. So SPP2 would be doing a Russian twist for a fighter because he will be put in that position. But I love what Pavel said. He said it's only for elite athletes guided under elite coaches.
Correct. And you have to be strong as a entry pass to do that. You have to have a strong everywhere. You got to be just a strong individual. Or what's the strong standard? Okay, swinging 32 kilos, for example, doing Turkish get-ups with 32 kilo. Everyone's got their standard, right? Could be deadlifting twice your body weight. But if you don't have that standard, if you're not strong to begin with, it's not for you. Build your base of strength. Spend the time with the iron, as they say.
Yeah. And you know, Kat, she summarized it so great. She said, you know, 99% of people probably don't need these elaborate lifts and don't need to rotate with a ballistic load. Perfecting the basics, man. And you know what Dan told me, man? I love Dan. He said, you know, as a coach, you are not supposed to get bored. You don't get bored. Because, and I asked him, I said, what does that mean? He said, you know, I have seen thousands of swings, deadlifts, presses, squats in my lifetime. But somebody new comes in and experiences a swing for the first time, I cannot get bored and say, okay, let's do a staggered swing. Let's do a American swing. Let's do a backflip swing. Because I'm bored of teaching swings.
Correct.
No, man, stick with it. Because
as
you
a
know,
teacher, you can't get bored. Man. And also, like, you know, as a practitioner, so as a practitioner and a teacher, you can't get bored. It means that you're gonna have to do you have to do your own program, your own thing that kind of takes care of this, right?
Yeah. and you know what
we each all have our own preferences into programming, and I've been doing Simple and Sinister for almost 10 months now. And, you know, there have been days where I've just kind of like slightly a little bit bored, but, you know, I enjoy the process. So I'm more mindful, and I focus on other aspects of the program, like the breathing aspects, more the recovery, and just the day in, day out. What's nice about it is I don't have to think about it. I just do my thing. It feels good for my body. And it gets up my way of getting my movement in. Because it's a movement assessment. How does my body feel in space getting up from the ground with a heavy weight? Feels great, you know.
And you see,
and then the swing is just a true expression of power.
And it's a beautiful exercise, man. And you know, this is where we connect again. I have been snatching and cleaning and jerking and swinging since what, 1.5 years now?
Yeah.
Continuously.
I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to give you a challenge. And the challenge is this. I want you to learn the hardstyle snatch. I want you to try practicing the snatch, but hardstyle. Try to accelerate the weight on the downswing without doing the corkscrew. You know how you do a corkscrew?
Without dropping it,
You're going to do the gooseneck, and you're going to flip it.
The goose.
And you're going to throw the bell down between your legs and snatch it fast.
The goose.
Powerfully.
Yeah.
I want you to try practicing this exercise. There's a lot of ways to program it, but, you know, just do 10 reps at a time or 5 reps at a time. Take your, you know, just practice it and give me feedback.
I'll give it a shot. And you know what? I always program stuff now like this, especially with the hardstyle. It's like, how we're going to do 100. How going to do it? 10 sets of 10. 10 is perfect. And then relax, breathe, get ready for another set. Man, it's powerful. It's good stuff. And hey, it just jumped into my mind. Accelerate the weight on the way down. I have a question, Louka. Do you advocate accelerating the weight on the way down in the hardstyle swing?
Depends how heavy you go. If you go with a 48, probably not, because you're going to get tired very fast.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be able to do 10 like that, guaranteed.
Of course. Is this a philosophy? Is this a hardstyle philosophy? Because I heard somebody say it.
It's an advanced technique. So Pavel talks about it we teach it in Strong First, but he talks about it in the Q&D protocol. And there's also ways of doing it faster, creating that overspeed eccentric using a jump stretch band or those elastic bands.
Yeah.
The inner ones, you hook it to the kettlebell, you put it between both your feet, and you do, I'm losing my words here. It's overspeed eccentrics. That's the word. You go much faster on the way down. You try to accelerate on the way down without losing technique.
So it is a technique.
Much more demand on your system. It's going to be much harder, and it's not better. It's just different. It's another way of adding your variety in your training. All right. So try it. I'd say with maybe a 24 kilo or even a 16 kilo. It'd be easier to do with a 16. You just try to bang out those reps faster. Ba, 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 right?
So then
So
it's
it's
out.
the rate of speed is gonna be much quicker. Boom, boom,
Yes,
boom, boom,
yes,
rather
yes,
than boom,
yes.
boom, boom. So you have less rest in between, rather than when you swing, let's say, I don't know, 32, 40, 48, you'll have more rest in the float.
Yes, when it's
You
on
get
top.
a little bit of
Yeah,
rest time,
yeah, yeah,
slightly
yeah.
fraction longer, right?
Yes, yes.
So that's the difference.
Ah, so and you could also say, if I and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you could also say, because somebody recently asked me, hey, I only have XX kilo, I only have a 16 kilo. How can I make it
Yeah,
harder? Then you
yeah,
could say, okay,
correct.
go with the single hand hardstyle swing and
Yeah.
accelerate on the way down. Boom,
Well,
crank
I
out
would
those
not
reps
recommend that
faster.
with the one arm, actually.
Ah, okay,
I only do it with two arm.
all right, not recommended with
It's
one.
safer because you can let it rip harder with the two arm swing, and it's meant for that. It's safer to use with
Great,
two hands.
great,
Because
because
with one
yeah,
arm, I don't want
yeah.
to use. It's too risky.
That's where I was coming from, because I was thinking, okay, wait a second, you really want to accelerate on your way down? That
You
sounds
could,
oof.
you
Oof.
could,
Yeah.
you could do it with snatches, definitely, because you have that pause at the top, and then from the top you can literally throw it down. It's like almost like a throw.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I gotta try this stuff.
Try with a 16.
Yeah.
There's a
yeah.
great book. You could check it out. It's called the Viking Warrior Conditioning.
Yeah, I got it.
Program.
From
There you
from
go.
from
Kenneth J.
Kenneth. Yeah, you know.
So Kenneth J.
Exactly.
He advocates those overspeed eccentrics for the program. You're doing 15 seconds on, 15 seconds off, and you typically get 7 reps in that time because you start with the light 16 kilo. You don't do 24, 20, 24, 16. Even for guys that are pretty strong, right? You start with 16 or 12 to 16, right? 16 is the right amount. And it's a crazy protocol. Like it'll gas you pretty fast.
It's great. Yeah, I have that, and I really need to read it. But the first thing that I did was, after diving into hardstyle with you, was going back to the simple and sinister and reread some of the stuff.
That's great.
Which
that's where you can get your light, medium, and heavy. So you go light, but you treat it really hard.
Yeah.
You still use a lighter weight, but you're just throwing that weight harder, using more power.
That's awesome.
That's what Pavel says. You want to make it harder, use more power.
Especially if you have just a fixed weight, right? Where you're like, hey, listen, man, and maybe somebody doesn't have a budget. I cannot buy a kettlebell, or it's just out of whatever reason, I have one weight and I want to make it a little bit harder.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
Exactly.
But still have, always applying all those safety protocols, which I really enjoy when from the video from Pavel, where he talks about, barefoot or just having flat surface, not those cushion shoes, which I see a lot in these reactions. When I react to videos.
Actually, you're going to like this. I just bought these sandals. They're called Zero.
Awesome.
They're ultra thin sandals. And I really enjoy them.
Wow.
I wear them. They're easy to put on, and it feels like I'm walking barefoot wherever I go. They're really cool.
That's awesome. One thing where I see where I like shoes is when I'm jerking with when I do jerks with 220s or 216s. Then I really like it, because on the double dip, boom, on the way down, you land on the heels. It feels better in the shoes. Yeah. Yet there's these safety protocols, and that's why it all circles back to the reason why I trust these respected figures and experts, and why so many people trust them, and why other people from the outside get the feeling that it is a cult, is because these guys are preaching common sense. And it makes sense. And that's what I love when I coach people, when I have people working with folks. Many times I hear them say, even if they have no fitness training background at all, makes sense. And I think that's one of the crucial ways where if I'm testing you on an exercise, asking you a question, and then you can give me an answer where I say, oh, that makes sense. With the acceleration now that we talked about, makes sense. But if it doesn't make sense, I have to question the exercise or the program. That's where I'm, coming from.
If you follow stuff from a trusted source, The understanding is a delaying tactic. So a lot of people, they want to they need to understand before they get started. You're wasting your
Say that
time.
again. Say that again. The understanding is a
trying to understand is a delaying tactic.
delaying
So
tactic.
just trying to maybe figure it out, or let's say, you know, one like Dan tells you got to do it this way, and then you say, well, I got to understand how this works. Like, so you try to, you know, lift up the hood of the car to understand the engine and all the inner workings. It's a delaying tactic. You know, you just need to get started on it right away, and then you'll understand later why it works, why it's so powerful. Then you could study it in depth and all that. You don't have to completely understand something to get the benefits.
You know, that makes sense when it comes to programming. Yet sometimes when I react to these workouts, sometimes I see and I said this many times in certain aspects. I watched the movement. I looked at it through the lens of the biomechanical aspect. I looked at it through the lens of understanding how the kettlebell works, the ballistical aspect of it, the bell shape, all that kind of stuff, right? And then figuring out at the end of the day, I'm like, I'm looking at that exercise and I do not understand it, and to me it doesn't make sense. And I do understand that sometimes, yes, if I see something for the first time, doesn't make sense in the beginning, yes, this may happen. Yet I would credit myself to a certain degree to understand a little bit of something about the kettlebell, where I'm seeing, for example, I saw this one kettlebell workout with these, and I love this. You said about these triangle-shaped kettlebells, where you're like, brother, that's not even a kettlebell. We're not even talking about kettlebells. And I saw another one of these where you can, it's not a bell, it's like a, I don't know, it looks like a bird's house or a bird's nest, where you can shove weights in.
There's a new one that is like Thor's hammer, and they call it a kettlebell.
I saw it.
There's even a knife called the kettlebell. Doesn't mean I'm gonna swing it. So there's a knife by Gerber that's called a kettlebell. So they're suddenly calling knives kettlebells now, and I'm gonna call a knife a
Thor kettlebell.
You know, it's like
the Thor kettlebell, the hammer kettlebell. I saw this because I was on Google Trends, because I was checking out what's trending on Google to make a video, and then I saw kettlebell. I typed in kettlebell, and then it says Thor's workout. I'm
hammer.
like, what? Yeah, Thor's hammer. And then I saw it. It's a hammer. What does that have to do with the kettlebell?
Nothing. Nothing at all. They just wanted to tap into the kettlebell market.
Yeah.
By calling it that. It's cool. It's novel. I don't know if you've seen this before. I think it's by Onnit. It looks like half a kettlebell. It's a kettlebell without the handle, and you put your hand inside the ball.
The fat bells.
They're like weights like that. You could use them for like presses, and they might be cool for presses and stuff, but to swing, probably not.
And I saw I follow Thompson. I can't remember his name right now, but I think it's one of his inventions from Rogue. It's fat bells, he calls them.
Okay.
It's a ball, or a bell, and the grip is inside.
That's what it is.
The bell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can
not made for swing.
Concrete blocks if you want.
Yeah. And, you know, Kat said this as well. She said, you know, sometimes when she looks at certain kettlebell, or we talked about kettlebell exercises, and she was like, well, for certain exercises, you can just take a bag of rice and it will probably have the same effect. Because the way you treat the kettlebell in that exercise, you do not tap into the potential of what the kettlebell offers because you don't understand its differentiating factor.
Yeah.
So you might as well use a bag of rice. And I was like, yeah, practically. Yeah. It's awesome. Brother.
I like sandbag training. That's cool. That's an interesting modality as variety.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like anything else, you know, you add it for fun, you add it for variety and for something different. And there are trainers that train they do a bunch of variety all the time, and it works for them. And that can work also. But you have to be specific up to a certain point.
And you know, you mentioned this about it may work, and I talked to Kat as well, and I'm interested in your approach. And I'm kind of, because I know you now a little bit, brother, I think I know where your approach might be, but I want to ask you. Now, you said, okay, some people are just favoring variety all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And Kat said, she said, you know, there's people, they're just hiking, they're walking, they're riding the bike, they're in great shape, and that's what they do. And she mentioned a book that's called The 8 Colors of Fitness. I got to check it out. So yes, I understand it from that perspective. Do what makes you happy. And if you're hiking all the time, I think you get a great workout in and you love it. You're outside. Awesome stuff. Yet, if we take a look at the big picture and now we start grabbing weights, it's not body weight only now. And even with body weight exercises, you can do stuff that doesn't work, right? But I believe, where is your take on this? I believe there are exercises that, yes, variety. Yes, of course. But value? No. Do you agree with this?
It's like going out to a restaurant. You know, there's different quality beef. I could go to fast food and get full on eating McDonald's, or I could really, go to a high quality steakhouse. Exercise is the same. There's different quality of exercise. Like Dan said, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, I love this.
And there's variety that works, that people use that are highly specialized. And there's other exercises that thrive on variety, like calisthenics. Calisthenics, more variety is actually better, or can be better. Kettlebells, in a way, yes, depends on the person, and it also depends on your personality. So I think certain people they can thrive on variety, and then I think others, they just need it. It's just part of them. And others, like myself, I can do better or be okay with just doing 2 exercises for a year.
And you're saying
keep making progress like that, and be okay with that.
And you're saying they can thrive on variety. And yes, let's put it into perspective of, yes, having fun and continuously do it. That's what I think all the experts agree, that whatever, when it comes to exercise, whatever makes you happy and what you can adhere to, that's your regimen, right? And but let's put that aside. Let's put fun aside. Let's put all these aspects aside that make people happy when it comes to lifting.
So if you put that aside as progress, are you making progress?
Yes or no? Now let's put somebody on the map where it's like, okay, look at this guy or this gal. She did variety only. Mm-hmm. And now we compare this with you. Mm-hmm. Swings and get-ups. And now you both have to compete, or you both looks, feet, or biological markers and everything, fitness, speed, blah, blah, blah. I think you're better off.
It's a toss-up.
You think so?
It's so specific. There's so much context. I don't know what the person has been doing.
Let's say, let's assume, brother.
Is it variety
everything
that hinders them? Is it variety that are they making progress with that variety? Are they so advanced that at a certain point, if you're too advanced, you need that variety? Like West Side Barbell, they do variety every 2 weeks. They change their lifts every 2 weeks because they're so advanced and they push themselves so hard in those lifts. So that methodology thrives on variety. All in the methodology.
In that case, I know Westside Barbell and Louis Simmons. I know where they are and who they are. And I know Louis Simmons, these guys are legends. Yet, I just can't wrap myself or my head around the idea that let's have somebody who sticks to the program to whatever result, getting in shape or getting lean or beating a competition. Put whatever result you want in there, blanket, right? And then you have somebody, well, what is your approach? My approach is systematic. I have GPP, I have SPP. Okay, got it.
Yeah, now what is your planned in a way that is...
Yeah, I think that's where we agree, right? Because now you mix somebody in, what do you do? Well, I do some push-ups, some pull-ups, some swings, some curls, some sled drags, some everything. Yes. And how do you mix that? Well, I just, however I feel like. This is where I think...
It's not intelligently planned. There's no...
That's a great adjective. That's great.
Or there's no... track record there.
And that's where I'm coming from.
You know,
brother.
you got to have a track record.
And what I think variety does, because I had this great podcast, and this guy was asked the question. He was a high level coach, and he was asked the question, and then John, when he heard about it, he smiled. The question was, Coach, what separates the good athlete from the great ones? And he said, the great athletes push through the boredom.
Mm-hmm. Is a consistency that they just keep going no matter what, and they keep going even on days that are not going well, or on periods that aren't going well, like cycles or weeks or months that are not going so well, because sometimes they have an injury and they have to take like 10 steps back, and it sucks because you know you're much stronger, you feel you should be doing more, but you're just have to do all these little corrective exercises, right? And you're bored of that. You want to push yourself. And you know, they know the big picture. They're aware of the big picture, and they don't let that stop them.
And you know, that isn't that something that happens as a coach or just in any profession, is there is a certain level of boredom that comes up where it's like, well, I want to do something different. And I always I want to live by that mantra, like, nah, man, you stick to it, because those guys and gals that stick to it, those are the ones that rise to the top.
Sure. And at that level, they do it for maybe the reason that they want to win. Mm-hmm. And that's enough of a motivator, because they really want to win. So my motivator is, I really want to master the 48 kilo kettlebell. I want to be able to do one arm swings pretty comfortably and get ups with them pretty comfortably. And that's my motivator. And I know that doing that, it's going to make me almost feel invincible as a result. So that's my motivator right there.
Mm. And you know that, I like this. That's where I'm coming from, where I always differ about this variety idea, because Kat said you always want to think about the skill transfer, or GPP. And I love Pavel's example. First of all, Kat said skill transfer means you choose the exercise that gives you most bang for your buck. For example, if you're good at swings, then you'll be good at running probably. Mm-hmm. So and I like Pavel's example. He said, for example, a back squat transfers great into combat sports. A bad GPP exercise is a leg extension. You only get better at the leg extension. So here we are, all right? So this is where it's the pyramid rises to the top, where it's like you have a certain set of exercises. And for example,
they make you stronger.
Yeah.
You know, those they transfer over to strength overall.
Yeah.
And better performance, better endurance.
Skill transfer, brother.
Better muscular endurance. And to a certain, and then after a while, you have to transfer to the skill of your sport. That's why Dan John mixes both. He does both in the same session.
Yeah.
So there's
mixed training.
Yeah. His nervous system kind of understands the carryover. It can make the.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is where I'm coming from. And even with the idea, I recently reacted to one video where the coach was doing staggered swings, and I love his execution of the swing. It's powerful. And the staggered version, what I said in the video was, I love his execution, and this is where I differ. I wouldn't do a staggered swing because I'm off balance. I have to use lighter weights, and I don't think I'm as powerful. That's why I don't do it. But hey, you're having fun with it, and you're safe. You're having a good execution form. Do it. But I believe don't expect the same result if you do staggered swings and I do the standard swings with both feet on the floor. And that's where I'm coming from.
It's like the squat, you know, you can get all these variety in the squat and how to place the bar and all this and stagger your stance and all that. They all work, but we know that the back squat, the traditional one, works really well. So we stick to that.
Yeah, why not stick to the stuff that works? It's
if you're bored, then you do the safety bar squat with the pads on your back. You can do front squats with the barbell in front. You can do a Zercher squat. You can do deadlifts also.
And have you heard about
deadlifts will keep carrying over to your sport no matter how strong you get. They just keep making you stronger, by the way.
Yeah, it's powerful
So,
stuff, man.
and then that's what's a deadlift? It's a kettlebell swing.
Yeah.
It's a heavy, it's a, you know, that's why we do swings. It's a lot of transfer over to your sport.
And that's what people ask me sometimes. It's like, well, because I reacted to Starting Strength, Mark Ripito from Starting Strength.
Yeah.
He was unfortunately dismissing kettlebells. But I do get it. I'm like, listen, you want to become, I'd like your take on it. You want to become as strong as possible. What's the best tool? Well, I believe it's the barbell. Do you agree? How do you?
Yes.
So that's it's the king of the lifts. You can incrementally load it and you can go maximum with it.
The problem with the barbell is that everything is bilateral. You don't get to, I mean, of course you could do single arm deadlifts with one arm on the barbell.
Yeah, but
you need so you need a little bit of unilateral work, and that's fine.
Yeah.
To balance things out, and these are nice things to do. Smart programming. You only do one thing for a while. Eventually, it's gonna break you down.
Yeah.
I know I'm gonna stop doing one arm swings and get ups for a while, and then focus on something else. But now I'm doing this
programming. Yeah.
Yeah. So next program I might do clean and press or snatches, something else, right? So.
So, and that's what I was getting to, you know, understanding the different modalities and understanding where they come from and understanding how to apply it. And I love what Pavel said. He said, kettlebells give you unparalleled efficiency because how you can load it, how you can work with it, the conveniency. You replace an entire gym with it. You work ballistically. You get a ballistic stretching of your hams and all that kind of stuff, which you don't get with a dumbbell or a barbell. And
if
so
the gym is closed, you
stuff.
just walk in front of your house and you could do it on the lawn.
You're safe.
On your neighbor's lawn.
Brother, as a final note, which I'm interested in, I'd like to hear your take. I was recently but thinking about the planes of motion. So when we do kettlebells, we mostly work in the sagittal plane. So I do understand we have the sagittal plane.
Like a swing?
Yeah, swing, clean, press, right? So I do understand with the kettlebell, we can also engage in the transverse plane, windmills, Turkish. Yet where I believe maybe club bells are a great addition, or what I now like to call is a scaption press, a scapular plane press, where you follow the biomechanical way of your shoulder blade when you press the weight, and you use your body as a lever. This exercise, the scaption press, and maybe incorporating club bells are the only way where you can work in the frontal plane. So kettlebells are missing the frontal plane. What's your take on it?
You can't get everything from kettlebells. You can't get everything from barbells. That's why we use everything. You don't want to be stuck anywhere. Because when you think it's just the tool, then you focus too much on the tool. You got to have the principles. You know, like Steve Maxwell said, is how you use the tool.
And that's what you see, because that's what I'm seeing. Yes,
you want to use many tools to train in many ways.
That's why
but you're gonna have your main lifts.
Yeah,
they may not be. You may not be working all the planes as in your main lifts, but believe me, you're working all the muscles in your body. Guaranteed.
Oh, that's a quote,
You're
brother.
working all the muscles in your body. That's for sure.
I need that on the shirt, man.
So you don't have to work all your planes and your training. You know, I mean, for to move well, for warming up, for mobility, for fun, using different tools like maces, Indian clubs, calisthenics. Part of some of my friends use the functional pattern stuff, the throwing and all that. But the main lifts, they work every single muscle in your body. The back squat works every single muscle in your body. The bench press, the clean and press. You the kettlebell swing, the Turkish get up, the pull up, chin ups.
I like
chin up.
Yep.
You the prime movers or your lats, your
Yep.
bicep, your grip and all that stuff. But then you have everything is isometrically contracted.
Tension.
I'm
paraphrasing this, brother. I love what you say, and I'm paraphrasing this now just for my memory. Just because you don't move in all planes of motion does not mean that you don't work all the muscles in your body. Love talking to you, brother, man. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, like it. Consider subscribing if you want to see more kettlebell content. And if you're looking for a kettlebell program that builds you up from a beginner to a slowly advanced trainee in the course of about 3 months, and you maybe want to combine it with some easy to follow nutrition coaching because maybe you want to lose weight or you want to get in shape, then check out 90 Days of Kettlebells. You'll find the link in the description. 14-day free trial included.